So here's our story of how we met. I met this beautiful woman here at the end of August of 2008. Oh man. Sorry, it just seems so fast when you're in love, you know. Anyways, we met on a hike I organized for the John Paul II Institute to go to Shenandoah Valley. And we were supposed to go to Old Rag Mountain, but ended up going to this beautiful hike, White Oak Canyon, where I met her. I happened to give her and her roommate, Shayna Tanguay Kalushi, a ride. And we started talking, and I started to get to know her, and she was pretty amazing. And, you know, during the hike, even though I was leading in, I led some prayer during the hike about being out in the wilderness and mountains and by streams and all that fun stuff. And I kept, you know, inching closer and closer to her until I got stung by a bee. And then I'm allergic to bees, and of course I had to use my EpiPen.
He was very brave.
Yeah.
I was very impressed.
So I like to say the steroids also helped to get our relationship going. You know, that adrenaline just poured out on this beautiful woman here, and yeah, so we started hitting up a conversation, and next thing, conversation was become more and more exclusive in the group, and yeah, I was just
so
always.
I think there's definitely mutual interest. And then when we got back to school, Dan called me up, and his excuse was that he had this poem he wanted to talk about with me. So I thought it was a little fishy because, you know, just met this guy, here's this poem. But we started talking about poetry, and that's kind of how our friendship just got started. And then I know for myself, I would try to arrange to be places I knew he was going to be. And then I think you asked me for coffee. It was the first thing he asked me to go to just with him. We ended up going to coffee on campus, and he also wanted me to teach him how to sing the song that we had been singing in the JP2 choir. The Magnificat. So I brought my song along, and we sat in Mary's garden, and I showed him how to sing the song.
Still can't sing it though.
Yeah, and I think we ended up skipping dinner. That was one of several times when we just were hanging out, totally forgot about meals.
Which is rare because I like food.
Okay, do you want to tell about the next date?
Well, I mean, we also went to Adoration, and we had a long talk, and I was going to tell her more of my intentions. This was a few weeks later, that I had wanted to pursue dating her, but prayerfully, and I wanted to say a rosary every day. But I didn't actually get to tell her because I picked a very inopportune time to talk to her, which is right before her bus came up. So I was just about to tell her my intention of what's going on between us, and the bus pulled up. Yes. Which she can probably tell more of her.
I was left in the lurch for 2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
I knew he had something to share about his intentions, but I had no idea what. So it could have been terrible, it could have been awesome.
Well, I wanted to do it in person, so I just couldn't do it over the phone. But unfortunately, the next opportunity was a hike, right? Mm-hmm. The Cunningham Falls. We love hiking, as you can see. And then I told her my intentions was to always guard her heart. And I had been in a few relationships before, and I always wanted to lead her closer to the holiness of God in everything. So I wanted to let her know that intent right up front. And we prayed a rosary every day. And then the last core piece before we started dating was I had a spiritual director, Father Jose Granados, and I had been discerning with him whether or not this relationship was right. I was waiting and waiting for my next time I got to meet with him. And then I meet with him, and he's like, I asked him, well, what do you think about, you know, this girl I've been telling you about? Should I date her? And he said, you haven't already asked her out? Oh my goodness. So I knew right then that the next thing should be to ask her out. So I called up her father for permission, which actually also backfired.
Yeah, my dad, well, I called my dad later that night and just talking with him about stuff. And before I got off the phone, he's like, oh, I meant to tell you, Dan called. I'm like, what? Dan called? About what? So my dad totally spilled the beans.
1 day before.
So I knew it was coming. So then we went out for, he asked me to meet him at the chapel after class the next day, to the shrine. So we went in the shrine, and we were praying a rosary again. This person was playing the organ music, like awful Halloween-sounding organ music. It was very not prayerful. So we decided to finish outside, walked out to Mary's garden, finished the rosary, and then Dan said he had a special prayer after we were done with the rosary, and he pulled out this sheet of paper, and he asked me to be his girlfriend in Spanish. because he knew I liked the Spanish language. I'd studied that in college. So he went through this little paragraph in Spanish, asked me to be his girlfriend, and I said, sí. And then we went out to dinner and had a very nice time. And so that's how we like officially became more committed. That was a step toward more commitment.
Dating, yeah. Then our relationship progressed. Had a lot of fun times, and eventually become more and more aware that she's the one. We always were discerning marriage from the very beginning, but had to wait for God's call to receive that. So about a year and a half or so later, after much discernment and prayer and thinking about what a wonderful woman she is, I realized it was the time. And so I remember talking, I didn't have a spiritual director at that time, but to a close friend of ours, Father Chris Singer, and discerning with him. And again, he gave the green light and asked her father's hand, and then decided I was going to do it on Passion Sunday of Lent, so we could have the whole Holy Week to prepare as our beginning of our relationship. So I was going to do it on, it was March 28th. Unfortunately, the night before, she got madly sick. Very sick.
I got the stomach flu from a little kid that I babysat who had been sick the week before, and just, I could not go anywhere. I couldn't keep any food down, etc. So that changed our plans.
So the whole day was ruined. I ended up taking care of her. She was pretty sick. I joke with her saying I almost left the ring on the toilet, but of course I wouldn't do that. But anyways, all these best wrought plans, God was, kind of teaching me that, this is kind of what you're saying yes to, not just the romantic moments, but taking care of this woman in every situation. So it was very humbling. So I felt God called me to the next best day, well, not the next best day, but a very beautiful day, Holy Thursday. But unfortunately, Holy Thursday was also April Fool's Day. But that's okay, because I felt really called that God wanted me to start on Holy Thursday. So I said, you know what, I'm just going to damn the torpedoes, and hopefully she'll know it's not a joke. So I went, and
so he took me back to the same hike we had met on, White Oaks Canyon in the Shenandoah Valley, and just the two of us. We planned a day there, and I was kind of thinking this would be pretty much the perfect place to propose. So I was had it in the back of my mind, maybe this will be the day. And we got there early, hiked down to the canyon. It was gorgeous. Nobody was around.
I was a little nervous that I was kind of rushing her along, which you'll see why in a second.
So we got down to the waterfall, and it was springtime, so the waterfall was humongous, like really just
rushing.
Gorgeous. And we're sitting there, and I'm hungry. I'm ready to eat lunch. But Dan's like, no, let's say some prayers first. Like, all right,
she wanted to eat, though. She was like really bugging me. I'm like, no.
So it's like, he read me a passage out of Introduction to Christianity by Cardinal Ratzinger and now Pope Benedict about love and excess. And that was beautiful. And then I'm like, all right, code, lunchtime. He's like, well, no, how about we pray the rosary? I'm like, all right, okay. So he got out his little rosary box and opened it. And there was the rosary in there, but there's also the ring. So then he got down on one knee by the rocks and the waterfall, and it was just beautiful, and asked me to marry him. And I said yes. And then I did it. Then lunch was off the radar. That was okay. We didn't eat lunch then.
It was wonderful. Yeah, I had just a few things to say to her. She recapped, but the other surprise, which is why I was trying to get her down there, was our good friend Father Chris Singer. I asked him to come up and bless us right there in the woods, and much to her surprise, he did that and surprised her right before we ate, and she was shocked. She was like, "Oh, hello!" And yeah, he was a trooper. Drove 3 hours, hiked up this grueling mountain. Hour and a half hike just to come and bless us in the woods. So we appreciated that a lot. It was a beautiful way to begin our marriage, or engagement. Sorry. But the other thing I just have to mention briefly is that what was really beautiful is I also got to wash her feet in the stream for Holy Thursday, as Christ prepared his disciples for the ultimate gift of his life on the cross. So too, I wanted to prepare for our marriage and the gift that we're going to make, emulating that gift on the cross by washing her feet in service and love.